With tortellini.
Beef?
I think it's pork.
God, I never have to carry this again.
Can I help you out?
No, I've got it down to a science. Do you want your bag back?
What bag?
The bag you gave me.
Oh no, it's not a big deal. Hi guys, welcome back. Thank you for the brief intermission. We had to eat because our tiny tummy gets hungry. We get hungry, right? We do. We get a little hungry sometimes, but that's okay. We're still new, we're still small. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Grandma's leaving. Daddy's walking Grandma down to her car. We're falling asleep after we ate. We ate and now we are asleep. That is a fact. So I'm just gonna give everyone a second to get back on and then we will read. Thank you all for your patience with our intermission, but you know, newborns have to eat, right? There's no getting around that. Hello, Erica. Hello, hello. She would say hi back if she was awake. She's actually very good at responding when people say hi, but she is asleep. We are sleepy. We are sleepy, huh? We ate and now we are asleep. Okay, let's keep going. We never mind you. Oh, thank you, Amanda. I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I do. I appreciate everyone being so flexible when I have to take an intermission for feedings. It will level out eventually and we will get in a flow, but because she's only 2 weeks old, it's so hard to, you know, predict when she's gonna wanna eat. Right now she's cluster feeding, so even though I fed her right before the live, she was hungry again anyway, but it won't always be that way. And we are building up a supply for Dad to feed her during lives, which is good too. So eventually it'll be a non-issue, but for now, we just take care of it because we gotta feed our baby, right? All right, here we go. The pity deepens. No, not the Colored League. She's a member though, is she not? Well, I don't believe she's been to a meeting in months, maybe ever. Well, then I don't know what you mean, but Beatrice does know what she means. She feels her elaborate theory that Quinn was a clandestine operative for the women's right organization, collapsing like underbaked bread. There was much more obvious reason that a beautiful woman with an understanding husband might make private calls at unlikely places, might disappear for periods of time without saying where. Beatrice remembers her first meeting with Quinn, the blinding smile, the daring derby hat, and the effortless charm. A woman like that could do much better than a bony librarian. Beatrice wonders wanly if she's the only woman to escort Miss Quinn to the fair. Frankie sniffs and reaches out to pat her hand. Well, don't you fret. You are hardly the first. Following her conversation with Frankie, Beatrice is more careful. She no longer permits Miss Quinn to loop her arm through hers or accompanies her in public, and when their eyes meet, gray to gold, cloud to sunlight, Beatrice looks away after a single second. She counts in her head, 1,000, drawing the syllables out long and slow. The last time Quinn visited the library, Beatrice suggested stiffly that there was no need for Miss Quinn to make the trip up from New Cairo quite so often, as they finished reviewing the old Salem materials and found nothing more exciting than a few desiccated rose petals. Oop, oop, oop. Hi, happy smiley girl. And a pale tatter that they thought was lace, but which turned out to be a shed skin of some long dead snake. Everything else, the court transcripts, the diary entries, the ledgers and letters, were either painfully mundane or mysteriously fragmented. A promising journal with the final pages ripped out, a little girl's letter to her aunt with the entire passages fading away to nothing, and an account from one of the inquisitors who burned the city, which ended by saying, "After the fire died and the screams faded, and I tell you I shall hear them till Judgment Day, Judge Hawthorne had us comb the ashes for days. Whatever he sought, he did not find." Well, if the secret to calling back the lost way exists, we may reasonably be certain that it's not in the Salem College Library. Beatrice met Miss Quinn's eyes. 1,000, she said. Surely your time would be, better spent pursuing other possibilities? Quinn opened her mouth as if she might object, but the expression on Beatrice's face made her close it. As you wish, Miss Eastwood. It's only after she's gone that Beatrice notices that Quinn left her derby hat behind. Beatrice spends the rest of the week working alone. She transcribes the chapters she's assigned. She adds more witch tales and rhymes to her little black book and fills up page after page with notes and theories and failed experiments. Solstice and equinox offer amplification, maybe? Maiden's blood and crone's tears, I don't know, mother's something? She squints at the innocent shadows as they glide across the floor and keeps her threshold lined with salt. Mr. Blackwell blinks as he steps closer and asks Beatrice mildly if she's been feeling well. If a certain scent lingers in the air, Beatrice doesn't notice. Clove, maybe newspaper, machine oil. She sees Miss Quinn just a handful of times at the meetings of the Sisters of Avalon, flitting in and out of South Sybil as they plan their third spectacle, but somehow never quite remembering to return her derby hat, and Quinn does not try to retrieve it. By the 18th of June, the summer heat has finally sunk through the limestone, and wood paneling of the library, so that sitting in her office feels like sitting in the damp interior of an animal's mouth. Even the books look rumpled and disheveled. The pages are swollen. Beatrice works until mid-afternoon, sweaty, glazed, and lonely. Her eyes slide to the derby hat sitting on her desk. She stands and tucks it under her arm. It may be unwise to form any particular attachment to Miss Quinn, but surely Beatrice might enjoy her company. Well, occasionally. She informs Mr. Blackwell that she's going home early, and she strides into the bright haze of the square. The trolley deposits her at the southernmost tip of 2nd Street, where the neat cobbles give way to hard-packed dirt, and the stately homes are replaced by hasty tenements, and scuttles north yet again. Hi, Ellie. It is Aunt Sasha's baby. That's right. She's here to say hi to you, but she fell asleep while you were waiting, which is okay because babies have to sleep a lot. She's very sleepy right now, but she can talk to you later. Don't worry. Instead of a neat grid of streets, there's a haphazard tangle. Instead of pulled curtains and closed windows, there are balconies crowded with flower pots and laundry and bright awnings, and even churches are suspiciously cheery, ringing with raised voices rather than tolling bells and dour chants. The city has retaliated, passing fussy little ordinances and fines for broken windows, stuffing the entire neighborhood into a single odd-shaped voting district. But New Cairo persists in growing. The jungle, Beatrice has heard it called, with a sour smile, or maybe they call it Little Africa, and Beatrice thinks that's because they're frightened to say the word Cairo aloud, as if it might summon golden tombs and witch queens from the air. The offices of the Defender are 6 blocks south, in a sooty red building that hums with the constant churn of the press. The secretary looks up as Beatrice enters. Cleo isn't in, Miss Eastwood. Check Amarantia's on Nut Street. He says nut strangely, almost like night. After several wrong turns and 2 consultations with bemused passers-by, Beatrice still walks past it twice. Nut Street is a long, crooked alley, deep-shadowed and cool even in the afternoon heat. Red painted doors and dark windows line the walls, bearing discreet signs like Leslie Bell, Taylor, Mr. Lawson's Curatives, and Amarantin's Spices and Sundries. Beatrice taps at the door. After a long silence, she turns the handle. She smells the spices first, 100 shades of cinnamon and sage, clove and cardamom. The air itself glows reddish gold, flecked with motes of pepper and paprika. The shop is filled with rows of tiny wooden drawers and brown paper packages, sacks of garlic and jars of ruby peppers. The floorboards sigh, little puffs of saffron and salt as she crosses them. There's another smell lying beneath the spices, a colder, stranger, and wilder one that Beatrice can't name. Beatrice edges towards the counter in the back, empty except for the small copper bell, and Beatrice is reaching for it when she hears her own name followed by, "Well, certain she isn't holding anything from me. She doesn't suspect anything, she's just cautious." Beatrice goes very still, hand outstretched, her lungs half full. She knows that voice. Someone else says something low and indistinct. It must be a question, because the first voice responds, "Well, tomorrow night, the rose moon. I told them that a full moon was a foolish time for going unseen, but they're cheeky, less careful. They're foolish." Tomorrow, the Sisters of Avalon work their third act of witching. Right now, there are black gowns hanging ready in a dozen dressing rooms and boarding houses, words and ways waiting on a dozen tongues. Another question, too soft to make out. The voice Beatrice knows so well, the voice that's teased and tempted her and has argued with her over worm-eaten books and stained letters, answers, "The witching yard, the cemetery in the city, 3 hours after midnight." It sounds like a report that a soldier might give to a general or a spy to her master. Beatrice has been betrayed once before. She's familiar with that cold spread on someone's chest to one's fingertips, numbing the flesh, muffling the pulse. It's like the old tale about the witch, so monstrous that she turned men to stone with just her gaze, except that Beatrice is the monster here, and the stone, both of them. It's only when she hears a clatter that Beatrice realizes her body is moving. She steps backwards into a shelf, toppling jars, peppercorns scatter across the floor like buckshot. The voices in the back room go abruptly silent. A soft curse, hurried footsteps. Beatrice is already running, shoving past the long strings of dried herbs and necklaces of shriveled flowers, sending more jars tumbling in her wake. She has one hand on the door when she hears her name again. She looks back over one shoulder. Behind the counter, obscured by jangling ropes of herbs and yellow clouds of spelled spices, her face is wretched and taut. And there stands Miss Cleopatra Quinn. She's beautiful, even here, even now, with her sleeves rolled to the elbows and the tendons of her throat standing rigid beneath her skin, betrayal dying on her lips. There's a glow to her, as if she carries a lit candle in her chest. Their eyes meet, and Beatrice can't tell how many seconds pass. More than one, certainly. "Oh, Beatrice, please." It's the third time she's heard her name in Quinn's mouth, and everyone knows the third time is the last. Beatrice drops the derby hat still clamped foolishly beneath her arm, and she runs, and no one follows. Juniper listens as Bella tells her the whole sorry thing. Juniper stays quiet for a while after running her tongue along her teeth, watching her sister pace and fret. "Well, it's too late to call it off." Bella's shoulders are bowed in a U around her chest, her face white and raw. I should have asked her to take the oath. I should never have trusted her. She practically told me not to trust her." She wrings her hands. "If we left now, we could get to Agnes and the Hull sisters, probably a few others before midnight. Oh, what should we do?" If she wrings her hands any more violently, Juniper thinks the skin might rub off. She crosses her ankles. "Well, that depends." "On what?" "Well, on who she talked to." Juniper catches Bella's eyes and pins her and asks flatly out, "Do you think your girl ratted us out to the law?" Bella stops pacing. She stands framed by the round glow of the window, her eyes on the smogged stars. "No," she whispers, and Juniper can't tell if she really means it or merely wants to mean it. But Juniper doesn't care. She wants the cool whip of the night on her cheeks, the black tangle of robes beneath her, and the heat of witching in her blood. Damn the danger. She stands, her smile wide and wicked. "Well, then it's time we get ready." Scene break, time for Mommy Dove coffee. How did it go? Everything good down there?
Yeah. Just arrived.
Oh, somebody's got a social security card. How exciting for you. Very nice.
You got a letter from somebody.
Oh, that looks nice.
From Maryland.
From Maryland. Oh, it's probably from Catherine.
Yes.
Catherine Fowler?
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's
That's it?
Yeah. I think it's a baby announcement for her baby.
Oh.
Let's see. And then we'll read our next scene right after. Is it a baby card?
There's a mouse on it.
Probably a baby card. If there's a mouse on it, it's probably a baby. Everyone I know is having babies right now. What's it say? Is it for her baby or our baby?
I think it's just a thank you.
Oh, because I sent her something for her baby shower.
Yeah.
That's why she signed it from herself and her baby. I did the same on mine.
Card from my parents.
You did? Oh, we
It
did.
was to
Yes,
both of us.
of course. No, I did this over. We got a baby girl
To Mr. and Mrs. Quinn.
to Mr. and Mrs. Quinn and baby girl. We can't wait to see you. That's right. And we're so happy to welcome this baby into our family. Aw, your grandma and grandpa love you so much. They can't wait to see you. They can't wait to meet you. They're going to hold you and cuddle you forever. All right, let's read our next scene and see what's going on with Miss Quinn. Could that be you? No, you're not this Miss Quinn. Your name's not Cleopatra, although that would be funny.
The character's name is Quinn.
The character's name is Cleopatra Quinn, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It depends. So my mom was here visiting her today, but my mom lives in the area, so you know, who gets to see her is dependent on travel a lot. You know, we're being cautious with airplanes and things like that, but my mom just drives over here, so it's
way too fresh to go on an airplane.
yeah, no, she definitely can't. And also just like people coming on airplanes, we're being careful with those as well.
Yes.
I would die for you to see her face right now. You should give me your phone so I can take a picture and show you what her face looks like right now.
Uh-oh.
I almost dropped my thing.
Book device.
My book device, that's right. Miss Thing, do you like a book device? You one day will want a book device. I can feel it in my bones. I can feel it in my bones. This is the funniest face. Here you go. Whoop! Jeez. I almost dropped your device.
Butterfingers.
Butterfingers today. To be fair, I am holding a tiny human in one arm.
Of course.
All right, next scene. Ahem. Oops. Oh, jeez. Okay. Entering What? Okay.
Wow.
Very, very funny.
She looks like she could be on a card.
She's beautiful.
Actually, cute, way cuter than the.
She's way cuter than the
ugly
AI baby on
the-
that card, yeah.
Well,
That's
no,
not
I think
a
it's
real
like
baby.
a Renaissance painting or something.
You think so?
Yes. I don't think it's an AI baby. I think
It's something. Here, I'll show.
creepy
They can
cherub.
decide. This is what's on the card. Our baby's way cuter than this, just so you guys know.
nice.
You haven't seen her face, but I'm here to tell you she's cuter than this. It's not that this baby's ugly, I just don't know that this is a real baby. I don't think it's a real baby. I think it's a rendering of a baby.
Well, yes, it's.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's a AI one though.
No, I guess I didn't mean AI, but definitely not a real baby. That's not like someone's child.
No.
All right, here we go. Intery, mintery, cuttery, corn, apple seed and apple thorn, feather fine, fivefold, turn it all to gold. This is a spell for a golden apple, requiring 5 feathers and a pricked thumb. James Juniper is just a girl most of the time. The rest of the Sisters of Avalon are just maids or mill workers or dancers or fortune tellers or mothers or daughters. Everyday sorts of women with everyday sorts of lives, not worth mentioning in any story worth telling. But tonight, beneath the rose moon of June, they are witches. They're crones and maidens, villains and temptresses, and all the stories belong to them. Juniper likes the city at night better than its daytime self. At night, the noise and the clatter is soft enough to hear the rush of the wind through the alleys and the patting of stray cats and the chitter and the dart of bats. The earth feels closer beneath the cobblestones, and the stars shine stubborn through the smog and gaslight. Juniper can almost pretend she's running through the woods back home, tangled hair and bare feet. Maybe it's just the solstice getting closer. Mags always said that the holy days are when witching burns brightest, when even mice and men can feel the hot pulse of it beneath the skin of the world. The cemetery is locked after dark, the gates high and sharp, but tonight they are witches. Juniper tosses her cedar staff over the top and then braids 3 sisters' hair together and whispers the words. The sisters climb the black silk rope, long and supple, and thud into the soft earth of the cemetery, one after the other. They slip like shadows amongst the graves. The witch yard is tucked on the eastern edge of the cemetery. a half-acre of weeds and scraggled grass without so much as a cracked headstone or a wooden cross. A witch was never buried beneath her name. Instead, her ashes were sown with salt to prevent her soul from lingering longer than it should. Then they were scattered over unhallowed ground. Juniper looks at that barren, sour earth and feels a leaden weight in her limbs, grief, maybe, for all the women that they burned before her. The fence around the witch yard is less offense than a suggestion of offense. That's funny. Their skirts snag on rusted iron and sagging posts as they step across it. They flock to the center, where a single stunted hawthorn claws at the sky. Stillness falls. The cemetery is silent except for the rustle of the wind through black-dyed cloth. Juniper looks from face to moon-silvered face. Agnes with her belly hard and full, worried-looking Bella, Frankie Black and Florence Pearl, their arms long and bare, Jenny Lind and Gertrude Bonin, a dozen girls with eyes like bared blades and bloodied promises, standing on the ashes of their ancestors. Juniper wishes, with a poison twist in her stomach, that her daddy could see them now. A girl is such an easy thing to break. Weak and fragile, all alone, all yours. But they aren't girls anymore, and they don't belong to anyone. And they aren't alone. Come and get us now, you bastard, she thinks. Her fists are tight around the feather in her pocket, and for a red second she wants to snap it. What good are golden apples anyway? They should be raining brimstone or poisoning wells or making every man in New Salem shake in his damn boots. Last week, they found a spell to call storms, a sailor's rhyme about red skies at morning and red skies at night, but Agnes shook her head. I thought you wanted to recruit more women to the cause. Yeah, it'd recruit the hell out of me, Juniper says truthfully. Yeah, well, you're a plague and a calamity, and you should be locked up for the safety of the city. Agnes held the apple up to the window where it glowed rich and impossibly yellow. All of us grew up on stories of wicked witches, the villages that they cursed, the plagues they brewed. We need to show people what else we can offer. Give them better stories. Now Agnes clears her throat at Juniper's side. She steps forward to bury 5 apple seeds at the base of hawthorn. She kneels in dirt, hair loose and shining around her shoulders, lips forming the words for growth and greening, and some others whisper with them, fee, fi, fo, and fum. The hawthorn creaks. It groans and whines in a manner not unlike Mama Mag's on a cold morning when frost creeps white up the mountainside, and then it grows. The knobbled branches swell, the roots twist through the earth, and the dry curl of leaves turn glossy emerald. Buds sprout and unfurl. They bloom, fade, fall. An entire springtime passes in a second. Fruit swells hard and green and then waxy red, ready for plucking. When Agnes stops speaking, there's an apple tree in the witch yard where the hawthorn once stood, and its crown is spread high and proud. Its boughs are heavy with unnatural fruit. Juniper puts her thumb to her mouth and bites until she tastes warm copper. She reaches for an apple and she smears her blood across its flesh, red on red. Beside her, she sees the others mimic her, hands lifting up, blood running down their wrists, feathers clutched tight. They speak the words together, and it's just like Bella said it would be, strong for the sharing, grander, wider, hotter. The witching burns into the world, and the apples blush gold, except not just the apples. Yellow creeps up the stems and the twines around the branches, runs along the branched vines of the leaves. Juniper and her sisters keep speaking the words, and the magic keeps burning, and the gold keeps spreading, until the entire tree stands bright and metal, as if Queen Midas herself strolls out of legend to trail her fingers along its bark. The chanting stops. Silence falls broken only by the calls of the night birds and the clink-clink of the wind through the golden leaves. The tree seems to emit its own buttery light, like a torch burning in the night, and Juniper sees the shine of it reflected in the upturned faces of the sisters of Avalon. Each of them has the odd, slack expression of a woman who has witnessed an impossibility, a miracle, a revelation, a better story glowing in the darkness. Juniper glances sideways at Agnes, who looks younger and softer in the golden light. Juniper reaches for her hand without thinking, the way that she did when they were girls, except now her palm is tacky with her own blood. Yeah, so maybe you were right, she whispers. Of course I was right. Agnes folds her fingers around hers and squeezes once. Juniper limps forward. With the scuffed end of her staff, she scrapes a sign into the dirt. 3 circles, bound together. She's about to tell them all to head home when something rustles in the grave-strewn dark at Juniper's back. A fox, she thinks, or a cat. But the rustle spreads. It echoes from every direction. A sudden swell of sound. Juniper spins to see shadows standing, black-cloaked figures rising from behind the gravestone, with silver badges glinting on their chest, and she sees hands reaching, dark cloths whipped aside, and then the witch yard is flooded with the blinding light of a dozen lanterns. The light hits them like a stroke of midnight, breaking some invisible spell. The glow of the golden tree turns sickly yellow, and the wheeling stars become pale pinpricks above them. The wind dies. The night bird falls silent. The witches are made into mere women once more. Juniper swears, her eyes stinging, and around her she hears the gasps and screams of others, her sisters and, capital S, her sisters. The girls and the women who followed her into this trap, she thinks. The word falls, and she feels the iron bite as it closes around her. She's still tear-blinded, staggering when she hears a man's voice echoing weirdly off the gravestone. It's familiar, oily, maybe too high, but it's only when Juniper hears the soft whimper of a dog that she realizes who the voice belongs to. Mr. Gideon Hill. For the safety of our fair city and the good of all her people. She can hear the smile in his voice, cloying and gray. I hereby place James Juniper Eastwood and her accomplices under arrest to be tried for crime and murder by witchcraft. The first thing that Beatrice feels is a rush of very foolish relief. There's been some sort of mistake, surely. None of them, whatever their sins and faults, are murderers. And then Beatrice sees her youngest sister's face, bloodless and hard, her eyes flicking through every expression except for sunrise, and she thinks perhaps maybe she's mistaken in that assumption. The second thing she feels is the familiar chill of flesh turning to stone, the numbness that follows betrayal. The men were all huddled in the cemetery past midnight, waiting. They had been forewarned. One of the figures scuttles forward, his lantern held high. He's a middle-aged man, unremarkable, with a dog sulking at his heels like a reluctant shadow. It takes Beatrice far too long to recognize him, given that his face is plastered on campaign posters across 3/4 of this city. The Gideon Hill of the ads and the newspapers is a noble one, even dashing with ruddy cheeks and flaxen hair. In the lantern glares, he seems to have no color at all now. His eyes flicker to the golden tree behind the sisters, and his lips twist in a patronizing cousin of a smile. Most impressive, ladies. The eyes move to the ground where Juniper scratched the sign of the last 3, and his smile vanishes. His voice rises. You have besmirched our fair city with your simple ways, but no longer. Beatrice is busy turning to stone and drowning in panic, but she spares a second to think. Besmirched? And she wonders exactly which pulpy novel Mr. Hill has been reading. James Juniper, come with us if you please. The rest of you will be taken in for questioning. Beatrice knows enough about witch trials to hear the violence waiting beneath the word questioning, the hiss of hot iron on flesh and the crack of a whip. The line of men at Hill's back seems to hesitate. They shuffle and murmur, perhaps reluctant to lay hands on a black-gowned woman meeting beneath the full moon, perhaps remembering all the stories that they heard about them as boys. Mr. Hill stamps his foot at them. Sergeant, tell your men, but Juniper cuts him off. Easy now, Hill. Her voice is slow, a careless drawl, nearly friendly. It reminds Beatrice of the sheriff talking to their daddy, talking him down from some drunken rant. Easy now, James. No need to get hysterical, he would say. Juniper strolls away from the golden tree and limps over the fence, leaning heavy on her staff, just a young crippled girl with cropped hair. She lifts one hand in a sarcastic surrender. Do you think you bought enough boys with you, Sergeant? Or do you want to run back for a couple of more? Her expression is scornful. a little bored, as if this is all a lot of fuss and mess. But Beatrice feels the terror shrieking through the line between them, and she knows it's nothing but stubbornness and gut that is even keeping her standing. Juniper ought to remember that there are places where gut doesn't matter. Dark cellars, little white rooms where they lock you up until you lose the dangerous habit of courage. Beatrice takes a half step toward her, but Juniper turns her face back to the women still circled around the tree. "Ladies," she says and smiles. It's such a Juniperish smile, fey and foolish, dangerous, like an animal spinning to face its hunter, bare-toothed. That Beatrice knows abruptly what her sister's about to do, and she hears Agnes "No!" "Hemlock," Juniper says, and Juniper flings herself backwards into Gideon Hill. They topple him, swearing, her howling and thrashing, swinging her staff, and the Sisters of Avalon scatter like a broken string of pearls. Beatrice watches them running in a dozen different directions, screaming, stumbling, leaving scraps of black hung on their broken spokes of fence. They dodge through the headstones, some of them caught by reaching hands borne to the earth, some of them vanishing like smoke into the night. Beatrice knows that she ought to be running with them, but she's still made of stone. She's still unmoving. There's a tangle of bodies where Juniper once stood. Beatrice catches the shine of boots, the sick thud of fists on flesh. Hill struggles free. He stands panting, whipping blood from his split lip with an absent expression, as if he doesn't feel any particular way about the violent tackle by a witch. A pair of officers lumbers towards a tree where Beatrice still stands, still as limestone. She thinks distantly that it might be nice to burn, actually, because then at least she'll never have to see Miss Quinn's cat grin again and wonder why she betrayed them. Someone shoves her between the shoulder blades hard. "Run, damn you!" It's Agnes hissing, and so Beatrice runs. Agnes should have started running as soon as she heard the first scuff of the cloak on stone, as soon as she understood that they'd walked into a trap, but she stayed, while Juniper flung herself at Gideon Hill, while Bella stood there like a damn statue, while her sister's blood turned thick and gilt in her palm. The last time Juniper got herself into trouble, Agnes had rushed to save her without a second thought. But this time, the men were wearing badges on their chest. This time, Agnes will wind up in a jail cell, and she knows what happens to women who go to jail with babies in their bellies. They lose those babies, either before birth from rough treatment and poor food, or after it, when some flint-faced doctor rips the baby from their body and takes her away still squalling. Agnes's daughter would end up in the New Salem home for lost angels if she isn't overlain or shipped out west. Agnes might see her sometime playing in the alleys, pock-scarred and undersized, with bitter black stone for eyes. No, not for anything, not for the vote, or for her sisters, or even her true blood sisters would she allow that. She gives Bella a good shove and runs without looking back, one arm wrapped tightly around her belly. Hands reach for her as she twists away from them. They tangle in her long cloak, and she scrabbles for the clasp, sending it winging free behind her. Each footfall is a slap against her stomach, jarring her hips. Her hair clings sweaty and tangled against her neck. She dodges behind a white pillar of stone and doubles over, heaving and choking back coughs. There are boot steps and raised voices behind her growing nearer. She fumbles a candle stub from her pocket and draws a shaky, desperate X of wax on the stone. It's men's magic. "Good for a getaway," Mr. Lee had said, crooking a smile at her. She gave him an arched look. "And are you often in need of a getaway, Mr. Lee?" she had asked. "Oh, yeah, on the weekly, Miss Eastwood." And across the room, Juniper had made a blip of a sound, and now Agnes pants the string of Latin that he taught them. Lightness fills her, as if her bones are hollowing out. A black twist of hair unpeels from her neck and floats upward lazily, as if gravity has briefly forgotten its business. She runs again. This time she's thrown a stone, skipped across a pond, a gull skimming above the waves there and gone again. The sound of pursuit faded behind her, and Agnes braids a rope of hair for herself and climbs back over the cemetery gate. She runs alone through the quiet streets, her feet weightless and silent, and she thinks of the hanged woman lying flat on Madame Zena's tabletop, of Juniper disappearing beneath a wave of knuckles and boots. She slows, staring down at the palm where her sister's blood is cracked and flaking. "Don't leave me," Juniper begged her. "Take care of them," her mother told her. But hadn't that been her mother's job first? She failed her daughters, and Agnes will not fail her own. She closes her fists and keep running. Beatrice is aware that she isn't going to make it. It's too dark. The graveyard is too full of humps and hollows, tilted stones, and she can't see through the blur of the tears in her own eyes. She hears the pound of footsteps behind her, rushing, and the rush of heaving breath. She dodges behind a marble mausoleum and presses herself against the door. The iron ring digs into the soft meat of her back. It isn't much of a hiding place, and any second now an officer is going to stumble in around the corner and see the shine of her spectacles in the moonlight, and she's going to burn beside her sisters for a crime that she certainly did not commit. Behind her, the door gives way. It caves inward, and a hand reaches out to pull her inside. She has time to think calmly that this must be a fear-induced hallucination, because it's only stories papers that in the dead come alive on the full moon. She pulls the sinners down. They pull the sinners down with them into their graves. But before a warm and dry hand presses over her mouth, she smells it. It's clove and ink. Stay quiet and stop biting me, woman. Juniper knows better than to bait a mad dog or a drunk. She knows from the glassy-eyed faces of the police officers that they're a little bit of both. She also knows that there are times when every choice is a losing one, when you have to go in swinging and hope that you make it out alive. She keeps her staff swinging and her legs kicking, tangling the officers in a long sweep of her robe as she flails. She chants, a tangled web she weaves, she whispers breathlessly. Crushing a cobweb in her skirt pocket, she's reveling in the yelping and the swearing of the men who have just felt spider silk gumming across their eyes and mouths. One of them shouts, "It's her, the witch! She's got me once before!" And something crackles across her spine, hard enough to knock the air from her lungs. A fist smashes against her ear with a hollow melon sound, and she finds herself face down in the dirt. She smiles into the ashes. Run, girls, she thinks. Boots and batons land in a panicky hail across her, blending together into a single pulsing pain. She hears a terrible splintering sound and worries for a moment that it's bone before the shattered pieces of her red cedar staff fall to the ground before her. Oh, that's enough of that, isn't it? She hears the smile in Hill's voice. Juniper opens streaming eyes to see his face queerly doubled above her, pale and grayish against the night. She grins up at him, knowing from the copper taste in her mouth that her teeth are slimed with blood. She makes a sideways hat sweeping gesture from the ground. Well, fancy seeing you here, Mr. Hill. It might have passed as nonchalant and unbothered, except that she has to swallow hard against the bile rising in her throat. She closes her eyes against the red flare of pain. She feels silken fingertips beneath her chin, pressing upwards, and opens her eyes to see Mr. Hill smiling down at her. His expression seems, well, wrong, pleasant, relaxed, nothing like the cringing bureaucrat out hunting witches past midnight. Oh, Miss Eastwood, what a delight you are. It's the sincerity in his voice that does it, slicing through her defiance, making her feel for the first time truly afraid. Hill lifts his eyes to the men gathered around, panting, bruised, one of them holding half of her staff with a blackening eye and an aggrieved expression. Take this one to the deeps, boys.
Yikes.
Big yikes.
Jeez.
Seriously.
I mean,
So mean. What was he thinking? Jeez Louise. Can you guys see that tiny little finger poking out? He's one little pinky. One little pinky. One little pinky. Boop.
boop,
Boop.
boop.
We're still very asleep. The food was enough to knock us out. We are sleepy, girl. Well, that was quite the chapter. So here's the thing that we're uncertain of as we come to the end of this chapter. Did Cleopatra Quinn betray them and report them to the police? Or is that just Bella's imagining? I don't want to believe that Cleopatra would turn them in. I don't want to believe that. I don't like that. It doesn't sit well with me. We don't know. We don't know why. We don't even know if it happened. You think she did, Avery? I mean, it sounded like she, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to know, right? The thing is, she is there trying to help Bella in the end. We know that. So, like, I don't know. I just don't know. But I assume we will find out tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. Tomorrow's Sunday. I assume we will find out on Monday, because I assume when the dust settles, Bella will turn around and ask her, what the heck, bro? I assume. Although, who knows? So thank you all for joining us for another rip-roaring day of witches. You had a bad feeling about her? Avery, say it ain't so. I liked her. I thought she was jaunty and fun. Oh no, but Avery has good instincts. Whenever we had other stuff going on in previous books, Avery's usually correct. So Avery has like a good gut for books. You're usually right, Avery. So when I hear you say something, I immediately doubt myself and my own instincts, because you're usually the correct one. I mean, it's true. From Land of Stories onward, Avery's usually right. So I'm like, well, I have to believe you on some level, right? Because you have a good track record. Better than me, that's for sure. I do have to say, though, and this is something that's a long-standing thing with me that I kind of do. That's true, Amanda, that is possible. I kind of almost allow myself to do this on purpose, is that I allow myself to be tricked by books and movies because I like the shock of things, you know? So I think sometimes, even if I could parse it out, I don't let myself.
Sure.
No, but like even if, and I like the surprise of it, you know? You know what I mean? Like, if I studied it hard enough, I could probably figure it out, but sometimes I don't want to, you know, because I like, especially when we were reading Land of Stories, every time we would gasp about something, that was just like the best feeling, you know? And in Stranger Than Fiction, you guys remember when they turned it around on us at the end and we were like, what is happening? I love those moments. I definitely didn't see, I mean, we knew something was wrong in that one, but we didn't know what it was. Exactly, Amanda. That's kind of how I feel. Like, you don't want to catch on too quickly because you want to feel the, like, whatever it is, you know? But I like that we all have, you know, thoughts on it. It's good. So we're going to go to the farmer's market, get some apples, and maybe Mommy will get another sandwich. That sandwich lasted me 3 days last time. It was a joy. Your husband hates it? That's really funny.
Hates what?
That she tries not to figure it out, but accidentally catches on quickly. She like doesn't want to know, but it happens anyway.
With our current show, I've had a couple.
You've had some good ones. I only had one where I guessed it ahead of time. We're currently watching Billions. That's our dinner show right now. What was it? There was some.
I don't remember.
There was something recently where I was like, oh, it's this, and it actually was. That never happens to me. I'm never the one guessing correctly, but this one time I guessed correctly. Have any of you watched Billions? I'm really, really deep into it. Dark green veggies. Oh, yeah. The only one that I'm having right now in kind of a lot is spinach. And the reason for that is obviously it increases milk production. And I'm trying to eat all the things that, ooh, maybe I can get another one of those lactation cookies. That was so good. There's this one like stand that has like sugar-free treats and stuff. Actually, we have multiple stands that have that.
The cookie was from the bread stand.
The bread stand, yeah, it was so good.
Yeah.
And it had all the things. It had flaxseed, oat, all the like everything you could want, and it was sugar-free. So, not mad about that. Yeah, spinach is also good for my iron, exactly. So it's good for me and for her. What a win. We've been having spinach salads and putting them in smoothies and all sorts of fun things like that. But anyway, I will see you all on the morrow. Nope, again, on the Monday. Oh, that's right. I can have rare steak again now. That's right. I forgot about that. That's one of the things I haven't had again. Well, anyway, have a great day, you guys.
You want to have steak today?
Maybe. Oh, don't. No.